October wrap up. 3 physicals, 4 audio, a lot of decorating. We'll get to that right after the intro. Welcome to the Dormer. I'm Michael. If this is your first time, thanks for coming. If you're returned, well, thanks for coming back again. This was October. There was a lot going on in October that really kind of affected the reading style. I noticed I definitely read far fewer physical pages, but quite a bit more audiobooks. And so I got through 4 audiobooks. I had 2 long trips. Twice we drove up to Canada, so you're talking 10 hours a shot. Did that twice. And then also a lot of Halloween decorating, which you hopefully got to see a little bit of. Hopefully those videos turned out off the drone. I guess I'll find out here shortly. I'll know shortly before you do. So we only have 3 physical books this month, but then the 4 audiobooks. And the number of audiobooks are really interesting because I worked my way through Malazan in the last year. And you're talking 45 hours a shot. The longest audiobook I think I had this time was about 25. So it's really interesting to see how many more books I can pop out. I've already done another in November, most of the way through a second. So November's definitely picked up. Even got a physical done already in November. Well, let's get talking about this. First of the physicals. It was October, which means we need to have something a little spooky. So we got a Descent into Madness. The Eyes Are the Best Part by American Monika Kim. She is a 2nd-generation Korean, lives in Koreatown in LA, and came out this year. Very interesting. This is a young lady who starts having everything go bad in life. Didn't get in the right college, even though she doesn't know why. Her father leaves her mother, right? And she random guy that she doesn't like is hitting on her. So she really goes off the deep end. And she's striking back at all the unfairness in her life by murdering people in a racist fashion. I know it's going to sound bad, but hey, look, if you're only killing people who have a blue eyes, it's kind of looking like there might be a trend right there. That's roughly what she's doing. This is a story of Ji Wong, or JW as we'll hear one character call her, and she hates it. And then her little sister Ji Hung, or Hyun. So Ji Hung is how I hear it, and I'm sure I'm butchering that. Apologies if you actually know Korean. That's her little sister, or JH, as the same character she hates calls her. And then you also have Uma, which is the mom, Appa, which is the father, George, which is the first of the horrible people stepping into the story. He is the befriends and then starts dating the mom after the dad leaves. And then we have Jeffrey, who is a guy who just randomly really wants to date and control Ji Wong. So George supposedly knows Korean, so right off the bat, right, we meet him, and Ji Wong hates him already. As a kid who finds out dad's only been gone a couple months, and here's mom bringing home a boyfriend, like that's not that rare of a thing that she would immediately hate him. She immediately hates that he's white, hates that a lot. Really hates that mom said he speaks Korean and he speaks poor Korean. As somebody who's learning languages, I would be accused of speaking poor whatever else, potentially even English. Depends where you're coming from. And it's just a story that follows Ji Wong as her life just crumbles. And at the same time, her mom introduces her to eating eyes. Yeah, I'll show you some of the pictures of the book. I'm going to do it on pictures. That way it shows up a little bit better than if I hold them in front of the camera. But beautiful edition. This was Evernight Q3 book. So beautiful edition. Definitely goes down the Descent into Madness style of horror. And like on the read, my original read through it, I gave it 4 stars originally. But I think in retrospect, I drop it to 3.5 as being a little problematic in some parts. So it's probably really like a 3.5, 3.75. It's okay. I mean, I didn't dislike it. I don't want to give too many spoilers away on what happens, but let's just say there's some eyes being eaten. And oddly enough, we have another eye book coming up shortly. Just throw that. Next up, I decided to go the completely opposite direction. We wanted to go after something kind. And that comes to Legends and Lattes. I finally got to it. This cozy that made cozies cool again. A lot of people's favorite books from a couple of years ago. This came out 2022 from Travis Baldree, who's also an American, and he is a voice actor. You'll actually hear him narrating a lot of audiobooks. And this is his bringing together, I call it kind of like a slice of life and found family as a mix. You've got Vib, the orc fighter, super competent, super powerful, but she doesn't want to do that anymore, doesn't want to go be a mercenary. Instead, what she really wants to do is open a coffee shop. I'm assuming some of the love affair that people have on this and why a lot of people gave this huge ratings is probably because they're addicted to coffee. And yeah, they're probably giving it a bonus point just for being so about coffee. As a non-coffee drinker, they don't get the bonus point out of me, but I still like the book. This anyone's wondering, this is the Broken Binding edition. Yeah, that's a good edition. Let's see what we got. We got Viv, the orc fighter. She found gnomish coffee and decided she really needed it. And at one of their gigs, the mercenary group, she claims an item. And she knew what the item was, and she didn't think anybody else did. It's a Scalvert stone, which was supposed to bring you luck, but apparently it's more maybe a karma stone. So it kind of brings karma. Well, she's being nice to everybody. Like she goes in and gets this mixed bag of characters. She goes into a town where it's very human. So here's, big, massive orc lady, scary as can be, coming in smiling and wanting to build a coffee shop. And that's what she does. She finds this hob carpenter. Hob goes by name Cal, or Calamity, but goes by Cal. Hob is a English folklore style, like a spirit from English folklore. And this guy's good carpenter. And with him, she buys a stable and turns it into a really cozy coffee shop. She runs into a different cast of characters, all sorts of just fun little characters. Standy, the succubus, that's her, who comes in, who applies for the job and wants to learn how to be the barista, even though she didn't know what it is. In fact, nobody knows what this is. She's introducing coffee to this town and nobody's had it. And yet, about 2/3 of people immediately just fall under its spell and are immediately coffee drinkers. It's interesting, right? In Europe, it definitely took a little while when coffee came in and replaced beer and wine. Instead of having essentially a buzz most of the day where you're working, you had coffee, which you could say set off a lot of revolutions. There's actually some really interesting history about the coffee shops and they in the salons, right? And a lot of the leaders didn't like them. But I find this interesting. I was looking for a little bit of that to see if Travis was go that route. He didn't. This is just a happy place. This is a found family. This is everybody liking. There's adorable food. There's a ratkin named Thimble who doesn't talk much but makes really good food. Little biscuits. In fact, they even have a recipe for it in here, so I'm going to have to try it at some point. So that's made Thimblets. Fun. I give it 4. Yeah, it's definitely a fun read. It's worth the read. Is it life-changing? No. Is it meant to be? No. It's just a cozy, right? Sometimes the whole cozy fantasy thing, when you go down the grim darks and the hardcore military routes often, sometimes you just want to know nothing too bad's going to happen to the characters, and that's fine. It's a small book. I just picked it up because I had a day left to read, and I thought I should probably do this. That's The Wood of Midwinter. Little tiny thing. Oh, it's cute. Yeah, it's like 50 pages. And this is Susanna Clarke, who's out of the UK. This is her 2024 short story, I would call this. It's just like somebody came up with an idea and ran with it for a short story. With Meredith Scott, who is a young lady. She's like 19, and she's at that point in life where she's getting pushed in a different directions. There's a guy who wants to marry her and has proposed. There's potential of going into the nunnery. She doesn't want to do any of that. So instead, she decides to go in the woods. And the woods, it's kind of like a magical journey. And there's a lot of pictures in this thing, too. So this is definitely kind of feels appropriate to read to your children. So it's not just it probably is a really kind of a children's book, but it kind of works as an adult. A lot of times those books kind of merge between the two. And so Meredith goes off, and there's talking animals, and she's having all these illusions. And it kind of comes down to the wood listens. Even though it's winter and there's not much in the woods are listening. A little magical journey. I don't want to give anyone too much away, and it's so short. You can't, if I talk anything deep, we'll lose it. Again, I give it another 4 stars. So that's a 3.5 and 2 4s for the physicals. Let's go over to the audio side. So the audio side, oh, and if you're wondering, that's only going to be 1 square in bingo because I flubbed my bingo this month. We'll talk about that at the end. But I only do this for 2024. I'm only doing physicals for the bingo, which is why even though some of the others might fit, they don't get to count. All right, first up, Butcher's Masquerade, Dungeon Crawler Carl 5, 2022. This is Matt Dinniman out of the States. Carl Donut and crew have made their way to the 6th floor, which is the hunting ground. So this is the area, and we'd heard about it in previous floors. This is the area where the warring factions from the 9th floor send hunters to go kill crawlers and either take their gear or buy it, however they can acquire it, get the gear and bring it back to make the army work in the faction war. And Carl has some ideas about this. In fact, Carl's going to try to lead a little rebellion against this. Freaking amazing. This book was hilarious, laugh out loud funny. I caught my kids listening to it, caught my son listening to it in the car. Yeah, he hears some things that probably a 10-year-old probably shouldn't hear, but yeah, he gets to hear it from me, or at least my books. And so, yeah, 5-star. That was fantastic. What a great experience. Now, speaking on that, on the Dungeon Crawler Carl side, I don't know if I would like them as much if they were physical books. I just picked up the 7th book because it's not out yet in audio, but it came out in paperback, so I got it, started in a little bit. It definitely has a different feel, so I'm going to have to see if it's as endearing or if it's really the voice acting that Jeff Mays and others, including Travis Baldree, is on book 6. So we got some other actors now starting in on it too. Next book is a different one. This was Lore from Alexandra Bracken, also an American. This is her 2021 book. I did the audio, but there was special editions, like Fairy Loot has an edition out, and I think Owlcrate has one too. Kind of the premise, every 7 years, the 9 Greek gods who somehow offended Zeus are forced to walk the earth, and they can be hunted while they're walking the earth because they're walking it as mortals. Hunting them are the descendants of all the famous heroes, the Argonauts and Heracles and all these different heroes. Their descendants are chasing down these gods. And if you catch them and kill them, one of you gets their power. Until the next 7 years. This is set in now. It's set in New York City in like the 2020s. It's hilarious. Right? I love it. It actually really well works. It is a fun YA or high YA. I would call it probably an upper YA, even though there's nothing going on that's beyond. It's just other than death and murder. You've got Lore, who is bound to be. I mean, yeah, we got some tropes going on. Yeah, of course she's going to be the special one. There's going to be something about Lore. We've got her guy friend from when she was training. So Lore's whole family basically got wiped, and she was training with another family, the ones who wiped out her extended family. Training with them, and she met a sickly little weasel guy named Castor, who she liked, and he was always super cool to her. And yeah, he makes a reappearance, and let's just say he's got a few more abilities than he had the last time she met him. And so those two are running along. You've got Athena, the actual goddess Athena, who had never been killed. It's actually her. Her sister Artemis is running around, and they're really mad and trying to hunt down whoever killed Hermes. Or no, did Hermes live? It was one of the gods who died. So you got a couple other characters. You got Miles. This is her guy friend who was cohabitating with her, like roommate style, nothing between them. And Van, who is Castor's buddy and long lost friend. They have the romance in the group. So yeah, little interesting take. You got a hunter and a perfect normie. Like Miles is definitely just a normal guy. This book, it worked really well. I probably would have given it a little over a 4, except the last hour was kind of boring. The last hour it went about an hour too long. Sometimes authors need to learn you don't need to explain everything after the fact. Look, you can just say, hey, they got together, yay. And if you're going to have them get together, I don't know, have them do something interesting. But that wasn't interesting for the last part. The first part was so much better. So there you go. That's I gave it 4 stars. I think it's legit 4, but it probably could have been a little bit higher. Like it was actually an interesting, fun ride. Switching back, another trip to Canada. So I was in the car again for another 20 hours, and that says the Bedlam Bride, otherwise known as Dungeon Crawler Carl 6, the 2023 release from Matt Dinniman. This time they got to floor 8. Hold up. Earlier in the thing, you said they were on floor 6. Yeah, I did. What happened to 7? Got to read book 5 to find out. But they're on 8. And this time, everyone's split up. They're taking on like a mythologies, like cryptoids and things like that from different mythologies from around the world. And so they get sent to different areas. They all get split up. So not many of them can't team up very well. And they are often working in all these different locations. It went to another level of nuttiness. It's also gotten larger. These books are getting bigger as they go. I'm not sure that's necessarily a good thing, but we'll find out. But this one actually worked out really well. It was a solid 5-star. I don't want to give too much details on what's happening with it, because I would just encourage you, if you've got some time to go read something that remarkably is caring, but yet can be incredibly juvenile and stupid in the sense of it's trying to be. Like the AI will make stupid jokes and things, and it's just funny. And that's Dungeon Crawler Carl in a nutshell. Good characters, good people, a lot of originality going on. And it has Donut. It has a talking cat who's sentient and shoots magic missiles really well. What more could you want? Speaking of, one last book. I decided to take it a little different route. This was 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City. This is by KJ Parker, who is also known, that's the pseudonym of Tom Holt, an English author. This is from 2019. And this is a story, it's almost like just an engineer's, like write yourself into the world as an engineer using engineering to solve things. You've got Warhand, who is a milk face. I'm assuming that means everybody's a little darker skinned. He's white skinned and gets picked on for it. Definitely there's a racial element. He is definitely not one of the insiders. But he has managed to work his way up into a corps in their military because he avoids niceties and gets things done. Meaning he will bribe people if needed, he will threaten if needed, he'll swipe if needed, but he gets the job done. And his whole thing is his group, they go around and build bridges in different places. So they keep going off building different bridges, and they wind up in a marauding army of just murderers coming in who are killing everybody from this group. Not the milk faces, killing the hosts, so the same people who kind of kept Orhan down, but yet he has friends amongst them, and he's going to try to keep them all safe. Turns out the marauding army, he probably knows the guy doing it. A lot of interactions with that gentleman. He's got a couple other people. It's a weird book in the sense that there's a lot of talking about, a lot of planning, like, hey, how are we going to build this catapult? Oh, hey, they've got a trebuchet. How does those work? And then they go through the engineering side of that, and he brings in some experts, gets an expert carpenter, really knows what she's doing. He's got his longtime crush. There's economics. They're trying to figure out, how do you keep paying? Because in the city that he's defending, you've got two factions that just hate each other and just want to go. And then you have the nobility who also hates all of them. And so he's having to figure out how to pay for this. Well, he doesn't have the money. So he's having to, cut the currency and things like that. Oh yeah, here's a gold coin. And really it's like 1/10 a coin now because he's been cutting it. All sorts of dirty tricks. But all dirty tricks for kind of the right reasons. It's an interesting book. It's a little slower. I gave it 4 stars. I think the reason I didn't give it any farther is because I actually kind of want my characters to have. Like, he's got a couple girls who he likes. Could he possibly have a nice thing once in his life? Rather than just like, oh yeah, nothing. And the only time he gets anything that could be considered nice, it was under he was up to something and scheming. So he certainly probably wasn't enjoying as much as you would think. But it's like, what an interesting, devoid of any emotion style book. It's almost like an engineer wrote a book. And that's the classic true engineer. All right, let's go to the Mingo board and see what we got. Welcome back. The way I normally wrap up the monthlies is with the bingo. By the way, the right's playing heck with me today, so we're just dealing with this. Sorry if it got dark. Our fantasy bingo, it's off Reddit Fantasy. 25 prompts. You've got to read a book in each one to count as a win. And there's hard mode, which can make it a little bit harder. This month, very little, because I already have Author of Color hit, which the Eyes book would have counted. And I decided this year to do it only off physicals. So I'm just doing off physical reads just to get myself reading a little bit more on the physical side. Next year, I think I'm going to go back to being able to do audios. That way I can just read the series I want, because you can only do one per author. And that cuts in when you've been reading some series. All right, so this month I only have one on the ones that left, because you can see I've only got Criminals, Self-Pub, Under the Surface, Prologues, Bards, Entitled Animals, Dark Academia, and Orcs. Orcs Trolls, no matter what my writing there said, and Oh My. The rest are covered up already. But these are magnets, because that's what I do. I cut out magnets on this. This is my little hobby thing. I've got Legends and Lattes. And that's a troll. So it would count here with a hard mode as a main character. But it also counts here as an epilogue and prologue. And that's actually where I'm going to stick it for now, because I think it's got a better shot that I'm going to get another troll book by then. I've got I got a Goblin Emperor. So I'm thinking I probably will mark that one off. And then, yeah, I mean, the hard mode gets hard, right? Like I'm reading a Dark Academia right now, but it doesn't count because the school itself is not entirely mundane. Yeah. Then you got like bards, and it has to be specifically called a bard. You do have one switch out where you can switch one of them to something on a previous year. I'm going to try to do 25 news. All right, thanks for coming. And November is going to be a more reedy month. As far as I know, I only have 2 trips in November, but they're both airplane trips. So physical books for those. Thanks for coming, and I'll talk at you next time.